The story of Rwandair begins in the aftermath of one of history's darkest chapters. As Rwanda worked to rebuild itself, its government recognized that reconnecting with the world would be essential for healing and growth. After several attempts to revive the former national carrier Air Rwanda, a new path forward emerged. On December 1, 2002, Rwandair Express took to the skies, marking the rebirth of Rwanda's sky ambitions. The airline began with a modest operation, focusing on passengers. In these early days, Rwandair Express primarily connected destinations within Rwanda and nearby countries, all operating from its hub at Kigali International Airport. The airline's initial fleet was basic but functional, which allowed it to serve domestic routes such as Gisenyi and Kamembe. As the country continued its relentless recovery, the airline looked to shed its original image. To do so, it would need a strong visionary leader. Enter Yvonne Manzi Makolo. Promoted from her previous role as Deputy CEO in charge of corporate affairs, Makolo brought a fresh vision and ambitious goals to the airline. Under her leadership, Rwandair set its sights on a dramatic expansion, and after a strong revenue growth, she announced plans to double the airline's fleet within 5 years, targeting 2026. This bold strategy was designed to sustain revenue growth and offer more convenient connections across Africa and beyond. Makolo recognized early the potential to drive revenue through the cargo business and support Rwanda's trade ambitions. But like every other airline in the world, Rwandair faced unprecedented challenges during the pandemic. Revenue plummeted from $235 million to a low point of $191 million. However, the airline's recovery from this crisis proved remarkably strong. By 2023, Rwandair generated over $400 million in revenue. This impressive rebound was driven by 3 key factors. First, a tourism boom significantly boosted passenger numbers. Rwanda recorded more than 1.4 million tourists in 2023, nearly triple the number seen in 2021. As the gateway to Rwanda's attractions, Rwandair directly benefited from this influx. Second, investment in cargo operations paid dividends. During the pandemic, Rwandair used passenger aircraft for cargo operations to generate revenue. The airline's fleet was particularly valuable during this period to support Rwanda's export industry. And third, increased transit traffic through Kigali contributed significantly to revenue growth. Over 60% of Rwandair's traffic came from transit passengers connecting through the capital. Overall, passenger numbers recovered impressively, from a little over 300,000 in 2021 to over 1 million in 2024. But despite Rwandair's impressive growth, the airline's financial foundation remains precarious. Behind the scenes, substantial government support has been necessary to keep the carrier afloat. To date, government grants to Rwandair totaled more than $500 million. The carrier also faces significant debt challenges. As of December 2023, the Rwandan state guaranteed $29 million of the airline external debt, while its non-guaranteed debt stood at $44 million. Some of this debt stems from fleet expansion decisions that were less than ideal. For example, in 2018, the airline leased 2 Airbus and took on more foreign debt than the IMF recommended, later cancelling the leases. This happened because the government wanted a direct flight to New York to show its national ambitions. The airline's diverse fleet composition also creates additional financial pressure through high operating costs, maintenance, crew, and overhead. While this fleet diversity is necessary for serving various routes, it definitely makes profitability more challenging to achieve. But Rwandair's strategy aimed at a bigger goal. Relying on a stable governance, geographic location, and the country's broader development vision, the airline was able to improve its operational credentials and certifications, proving once again its commitment to international standards. The paths of Rwandair and Qatar Airways converge through a perfect alignment of needs and ambitions. For Rwandair, the challenges of balancing growth ambitions with high costs created a need for external support. Meanwhile, Qatar Airways, in its ever-expanding quest, identified Africa as a market with significant potential. and Rwandair is the perfect candidate to provide a solid entry point into the African market and access to underserved routes. But as we will see, the road to an agreement has proven much longer than anyone expected. Rwanda's pursuit of Qatar Airways as a major investor demonstrates strategic patience and negotiation prowess. What began as exploratory talks in 2018 evolved into a 5-year negotiation marathon to reshape African aviation's competitive landscape. In February 2020, this mutual interest culminated in Qatar Airways offering to buy a 49% stake in Rwandair. For the airline, this partnership provides access to Qatar Airways' extensive route network, technical expertise, and financial support. And for Qatar, it establishes a strong foothold in Africa, with Kigali positioned to become Qatar Airways' first cargo hub outside of Qatar. The journey toward partnership between the two airlines was anything but straightforward. The pandemic and then the FIFA World Cup created significant delays. And beyond these external factors, both airlines needed time to align their fleet strategies. Rwandair was operating a fleet that included regional jets that didn't align with Qatar's operational model. Behind the scenes, an intense competition was unfolding across East Africa. Ethiopia, Kenya, and Rwanda were locked in what industry insiders called an aviation Cold War, each country vying for Qatar's investment and partnership. Ethiopian Airlines, Africa's largest and most successful carrier, is pursuing a strategy of regional dominance. With its extensive network and established hub in Addis Ababa, Ethiopian seeks to create a virtual monopoly over East African air travel, and Qatar's investment would have further strengthened this position. Meanwhile, Kenya Airways is desperately seeking investment partners to address its mounting financial troubles. With approximately $2 billion in debt weighing down its operations, the airline saw Qatar as a potential lifeline that could help reverse its fortune. Against these larger, more established competitors, Rwanda was the underdog. But what Rwandair lacked in size, it made up for in strategic vision and negotiating creativity. Rwanda's negotiators recognized that they needed to offer something their competitors couldn't match. And so, their masterstroke came in the form of a combined aviation package. Alongside the 49% stake in Rwandair, Rwanda offered Qatar a 60% stake in the $1.3 billion Bugesera International Airport project. That airport is designed to accommodate more than 6 million passengers annually and serve as a true East African hub. For reference, this is relatively the same size as Jomo Kenyatta International Airport in Kenya. By bundling these two assets, Rwanda created a proposition that neither Ethiopia nor Kenya could match. Qatar would gain not just an airline stake, but control of a strategic infrastructure asset positioned to capture growing trade flows across Africa. The airport component proved decisive. While Ethiopian Airlines could offer greater immediate scale, and Kenya Airways represented a larger market, only Rwanda could deliver both an airline and a future-focused airport development. From Qatar's perspective, the Rwanda deal aligned perfectly with its broader African strategy. The airline had developed a playbook for expanding into untapped markets while navigating around its Gulf rivals, Emirates and Etihad. The approach centered on acquiring equity stakes in strategic carriers and airports, then leveraging these positions through codeshare agreements. This allowed Qatar to extend its network reach without the expense of operating its own aircraft on every route. So, through Rwandair, Qatar could access markets across Central and West Africa that weren't economically viable for its own mainline operations. Securing Qatar's interest required more than just strategic assets. Rwandair needed to demonstrate it could operate at Qatar's standards, and to do so, the airline sent a significant part of its staff to Doha for intensive retraining programs. From pilots to cabin crew to ground handlers, Rwandan personnel were immersed in Qatar's operational procedures and service standards. The airline also invested heavily in upgrading its IT systems to ensure compatibility with Qatar's reservation and operational platforms. These technical improvements were essential for the seamless codeshare arrangements that would form the backbone of the partnership. While negotiations continued, Rwandair implemented an aggressive growth strategy to strengthen its position and demonstrate its market potential. Service to Nigeria, a key West African market, doubled, from 5 to 7 weekly flights. To support this expansion, the Rwandan government provided approximately $200 million in guarantees. This financial backing ensured Rwandair could continue investing in growth, despite the uncertainty of the Qatar negotiations. This contingency strategy served two purposes. It made Rwandair more valuable as a potential partner, while also ensuring the airline had a viable independent path forward if the Qatar deal didn't materialize. As the negotiations entered their final phase, the years of strategic patience, operational improvements, and creative deal structuring finally paid off. Rwanda had successfully outmaneuvered its larger rivals, turning its apparent disadvantages into a winning proposition that secured one of aviation's most coveted partnerships.